Good morning, students. So today we are going to discuss about reproduction in organisms, which shows the first chapter of your class 12 syllabus. After this, we'll discuss about reproduction in animals, reproduction in plants, reproductive health in further video sessions. But today we'll start with reproduction in organisms, the event from which life starts. Hello, I am Ankesh Singh. I'm your biology teacher. You can find me at this mail ID or you can reach me on this phone number, whatever is feasible to you, for clearing all your doubts. This slide presentation will be summed up with 4 different categories. First of all, overview, second, types of reproduction, third, asexual reproduction, and fourth, sexual reproduction. So let us first see the overview. From the birth of an organism to the death of an organism, the total time it spends on the earth is known as lifespan. This lifespan of an organism is very important. Why? Because in this lifespan it performs several different functions. Among them, the most important biological function it performs is reproduction. Now, what is reproduction? It is a biological process in which an organism produces another new organism which looks similar to the parent. This is the overview of reproduction. So what is reproduction? Reproduction is a process or a biological process which produces a new organism. Clear? Now let us move on and let us see the different types of reproduction. The different types of reproductions are classified into 2 different categories. One is asexual reproduction, the second one is sexual reproduction. What is asexual and sexual reproduction? When offsprings or the new generation, when the offsprings of the new generation are produced from a single parent. So whenever only one single parent is involved in the process of reproduction, whenever only one single parent is producing another organism, such kind of reproduction is known as asexual reproduction. In this process, no gamete formation is required, whereas on the other hand, in sexual reproduction, 2 different organisms are needed, and these 2 organisms must be of different sexes. That means one should be male, the other one should be female. The male produces the male gamete, the female produces the female gamete. Both these gametes fuse with each other and a new organism is formed. Such kind of process is known as sexual reproduction. We'll discuss about each of these topics very clearly, very deeply, so that we can understand each and every part of it. But for now, these are the definitions of asexual and sexual reproduction. So these are the 2 types and their definitions. Let us move ahead and see the asexual reproduction. A brief few points regarding these 2 reproductions. First one is asexual reproduction. In case I have said that in case of asexual reproduction, it takes place with the help of only one single parent. So the offspring which is produced, so the small young one which is produced is the exact copy of the parent. Whenever you look after an yeast, that yeast divides itself and produces a new bird, and from that bird a new yeast is formed, and the new daughter yeast and the old parent yeast, both of them looks similar. Second thing is what? Asexual reproduction is very common in unicellular organism. It is generally not seen in case of multicellular organisms like human beings or a mango tree. In this case, in case of higher organisms, we see sexual reproduction. But in case of unicellular organisms, what we see? We see asexual reproduction. Moreover, asexual reproduction can be seen in animals and plants having very simple organization, very simple organization. In case of plants having very simple organization, in case of animals having very simple organization. I guess you have studied about sponge. I guess you have studied about hydra. These organisms produce or reproduce with the help of asexual reproduction. In case of fern, it also produces new organism with the help of asexual reproduction. But you will never see a human being, you will never see a mango tree or any higher organization tree to reproduce with the help of asexual reproduction. The different types of asexual reproductions are budding, fission, fragmentation, and sporulation. So let us move ahead and see about sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is a process in which male and female are involved. The male produces the male gamete, the female produces the female gamete, and they together fuse with each other to form a cell. From that cell, a huge organism is produced. Like, look after yourself. You are produced from your mom and dad, right? You were once a single cell. That single cell is known as zygote. From that single cell, you are developed. Compared to asexual reproduction, this sexual reproduction is very slow and very complex. It's not that easy. Now, in the stage, in the lifespan of an organism, I said after a point of time, an organism becomes able to reproduce. That particular stage of life is known as puberty. Whenever an organism reproduced and an organism is formed and that organism took birth on this earth, at that instant it cannot reproduce. Its body is not feasible to reproduce, so it takes a certain period of time. After that certain period of time, it becomes reproductive. Clear? So the stage of the life at which it becomes sexually active or is able to reproduce, that stage is known as puberty. The stage before that is known as pre-reproductive phase. The phase after that is known as post-reproductive phase, and these phases are variable for different organisms. Now, the different types of asexual reproduction we are going to talk about. The first one is fission. I've said beforehand that there are 4 different types: fission, budding, sporulation, and fragmentation. What is fission? Fission means breaking down of a single cell to form 2 new cells or more than 2 cells. So what is fission? Imagine a cell. That cell is dividing and producing 2 cells. Such kind of process is known as fission. It is a very simple process and it takes place rapidly. Such kind of process in which 2 cells are produced from one single cell is known as binary fission. And if more than 2 cells are produced from one single cell by the process of fission, that is known as multiple fission. Clear? Next is budding. In case of organisms like yeast, I should give an example of fission also. Fission is seen in case of amoeba. In case of organisms like hydra, in case of organisms like yeast, they produces a small bud. That bud eventually grows into a new organism and then it gets detached from the parent's body. Such kind of process is known as budding. It forms a bud, it forms an organism, then it gets detached. This is known as what? Budding. Next is sporulation. In case of ferns, it produces spores. These spores are detached from the parent's body. It goes anywhere outside and it falls on the soil, it falls on any media, and then it starts to grow. Such kind of process is known as what? Sporulation. Now you have to keep one thing in mind. These spores has to travel miles and miles. These spores has to go through very drastic conditions. So these spores has the capability to go under very drastic condition, to tolerate very drastic condition for a longer period of time. Whenever the situations are very good, it generates a new organism. Next is fragmentation. Certain organisms are there which after getting fragmented, like let us imagine an organism, whatever organism you want to imagine. Let us imagine an organism. I've cut that organism into 2 equal halves and each of those halves are producing a new organism. Such kind of process is known as what? Fragmentation. Clear? Let us move ahead. So we have studied about the different types of asexual reproduction. We have studied about the basics of sexual reproduction. We have studied about few points of asexual reproduction. Now we'll move on to difference between them. A very important thing regarding your syllabus, regarding your understanding, is difference between them. In case of asexual reproduction, only one single parent is involved without the formation of gametes and is found in lower organisms. I have mentioned each of these things beforehand. And in case of sexual reproduction, 2 gametes are involved which are formed from 2 different individual parents which are of opposite sexes, and these are seen in case of higher organisms. Is it clear to everyone? So let us move ahead and see further few points. Sexual reproduction. We'll move with this sexual reproduction. As I've said, this sexual reproduction is not that easy. You have to see every part of it. You have to see each and every sections. You have to understand each and every part of that sections. Now, this sexual reproduction can be summed up like this. Sexual reproduction is characterized by the fusion or fertilization of the male and female gamete and the formation of zygote and embryogenesis. Too much heavy words in this one. Fertilization or fusion, male-female gamete, zygote, embryogenesis. We'll discuss about each of these things one by one. Don't be afraid. I'll tell you each and every of these things very clearly, very simply, so that you can understand and you can write in your exam very well. What is fusion? What is male and female gamete? How they are formed? What is zygote formation? What is embryogenesis? We'll discuss about all of these things. But the sexual reproduction is sequentially ordered into 3 different stages. Sexual reproduction, I've said, complex. Now this complex reproduction can be divided into 3 different stages. What are the 3 different stages? It is mentioned out here. pre-fertilization event, fertilization, and post-fertilization event. So in the next lectures, we are going to see pre-fertilization event. What is this pre-fertilization event? What are the things that occur in pre-fertilization event? What is fertilization? What are the events that occur in fertilization? And finally, we are going to see what are post-fertilization event and what happens after post-fertilization. Clear? So this is all about the overview. We have seen the overview, what is reproduction and all these, what are the different types of reproduction. We have studied about the different definitions of these two types of reproduction, and then we have seen asexual reproduction, sexual reproduction, their points and the difference between them, and we have seen the brief overview that how does a sexual reproduction takes place and what is the basic part of it. Now in the next slides, we are going to see about this sexual reproduction very clearly because it is one of the most major part of your syllabus. And then we'll try to clear your doubts in one question answer session. So thank you all of you for being so patient to listen to this lecture. If you have any questions regarding this particular topic till where I have taught you, please feel free to reach me at these two places, whatever is your preference, and please ask me out your questions. It will be a great thing to be interactive, to ask questions, and I will be interactive with you all to give the answers. So until the next time, until the next video session, thank you, be safe and keep everyone happy. Bye bye.